Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials.
Well, good morning. Saturday, 4th of February, just arrived down at the land. Cool morning, but not as cool as it has been, so I'll take that. Not too wet actually underfoot. We've had a couple of days without any rain. So it's actually, on past performance, it's actually quite nice this morning. Got loads of stuff to bring out the car. Trying to keep topped up with a variety of things. So I'll get myself in the cabin, get opened up, unload the car, and we'll take it from there. Well, good morning and welcome to the weekend. It is flying by the time. We're into February now. I've just been busy unloading the car and of course sorting the chickens out who are still laying. There's another 6 eggs this morning, which is very nice to see. Just throwing that out the way because I've got some notes with so much going on. Mentioning eggs, I've seen lots and lots of YouTube and TikTok and other social media channels talking about an eggspiracy. You might remember back in, was it early December? I can't remember now. There was an egg shortage. The chickens stopped laying eggs. Now that is actually quite normal in wintertime. Egg production drops massively, and I mean 6 chickens, you would expect 6 eggs a day during the height of summer. And then in winter you would maybe expect 1, 2, but they stopped altogether. And I didn't really think much of it. It's winter time. I expected a decline in production. And then of course recent weeks they've started back up again, and I did actually mention it in one of the videos, saying, oh, suddenly the eggs are coming again. But over the last week, just over a week I guess, I've seen all of these channels talking about this eggspiracy. Normally they talk about the price of eggs because there is a shortage, and there's a few different reasons for that, mainly around greedy supermarkets not passing on price rises. But I digress. But it went deeper than that over the last week or so. People talking about maybe something sinister has been put into the chicken feed to combat this bird flu. Maybe it's a global conspiracy to try and make another dent in the food supply chain, stop us eating eggs. I honestly don't know if any of that is true whatsoever. I've had the same chicken feed from the same place constantly, though I will say I did notice, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I topped up and I came to the end of my old stock and started the new stock, and I did notice a difference in the look of the feed. The pellets seem to be slightly longer, different shape. So there maybe has been a change in the recipe of that feed, but the chickens have been on it now for a couple of weeks. So if there was something in the feed, or if there was a change in recipe and they'd taken out an expensive ingredient and put a cheaper ingredient in that was going to have a dramatic effect on egg production, I think I would have noticed by now, and I haven't. So the Great Eggspiracy, whether any of it is true or not, I couldn't honestly say. All I do know for sure is that my eggs are coming again, which is very, very nice to see. So what's going on in the big wide world? I don't normally have extensive notes. I normally have a little scribble in my notepad, just a few lines to remind me what I was going to talk about, but there is still such an awful lot going on, and it's difficult to know what to focus on and what not to focus on. Majority of YouTube channels are still focused almost exclusively on World War III and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the potential new conflicts between Israel and Iran and the US and China around Taiwan. So there is a lot of activity on the war front. I will mention it very briefly though, as I don't want to focus on that at all. I mean, no matter what I recommend you do, it's got no real bearing on Ukraine. Were the war to escalate significantly, then whole different ballgame, and in all honesty, you're into a total catastrophic, something hit the fan without rule of law, end of the world as we know it, all of those different prepper acronyms that get trotted out all the time. And there's nothing we can do to change the direction of that conflict. So focus on the more mundane, humdrum things that definitely do impact you, me and everybody else in everyday life. Biggest of those, I guess, is the economy. Inflation here in the UK, still over 10%. Bank of England recently put out an article saying that inflation is going to be with us for longer than expected. Remember back in the heady days of 2021, 2022, when inflation first became noticeable in the mainstream media, and all of the banks were saying, oh, it's transitory, it'll be gone in a few months. Governments were saying the same thing. Now it seems that the central banks are saying, yeah, actually, you're gonna have to suck this up for a while yet. Meanwhile, food inflation hits another record, 17% here in the UK, but it is pretty much a global phenomenon. Try saying that. Phenomenon. Phenomenon. Only British viewers would get the little song there. And again, if you're of a certain age. Yeah, so 17% food inflation. Can you hear that? That's the chickens producing. Good girls. Yeah, so 17%. News article out saying that the average increase for a UK household, £800 a year. There you go, enjoy. Still with the economy, growing number of companies now announcing job losses. I've mentioned that over recent weeks. There were a few big headlines about individual companies laying off thousands of workers. But what is kind of concerning, previously it was talking about sort of tech companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, thousands of people per company getting laid off. But interestingly and kind of worryingly, here in the UK, and I suspect elsewhere in the world, we're seeing an impact on food, either production or retailing companies, your big supermarkets. A couple of news articles in the media this week about here in the UK, the two biggest and probably most well-known supermarket chains, Asda and Tesco, saying that they're struggling and they're going to have to start laying off staff. Interesting use of words, that unemployment is the cure, because it actually compares this current employment crisis with a virus. Where have we heard that before? Interesting choice of words. As I said just now, interest rates up again in January. Literally this last week, I did pop a post in the community tab about this. Bank of England came out, another hike. It's now 4%. And again, that's likely to just continue for the foreseeable future. But this means that it has an immediate knock-on effect for you, me and everybody else. Anybody who has a mortgage or has other kinds of bank debt, credit cards, bank loans, things like that, this hiking in interest rates again is just going to cause more pain for people who do still have a mortgage or other kind of bank debt. Lots of other news in the media as well. Strange stuff, some of it over the last week. Majority of them, though, are around this kind of never-ending attack by government and non-elected world bodies. World Economic Forum, United Nations, all of these sort of three-letter acronym global bodies that are not elected. They're just full of wealthy elite people who pontificate on what the masses should need to suffer next to suit what they perceive as being their global lifestyle, the way in which you, me and everybody else is supposed to live our life. And the majority of these edicts that come out from these organisations and filter through our individual governments are generally around restrictions in some way, shape or form on the freedoms that we should enjoy, or in introducing new measures to control us yet more tightly. Some recent examples of that, and I've seen quite a few YouTube channels here in the UK covering this in quite some depth. It's the concept of this 15-minute city. I've not personally mentioned this before. I had kind of naively, I guess, assumed that when they rolled out the concept to people and did the first trial, we had two cities, I think it's Bath and Oxford, currently in the UK, who have said, yes, we're going to implement this. I did think it might not roll out as quickly and be adopted as quickly as it has, because there are something like 40 or 50 other local authorities, I don't know what you would call that elsewhere, regions, states, bits of the country, mandated by government, bits of the country. It's the people who take care of delivering government services in your local region. So yeah, 15-minute cities, the concept is that barriers, physical and electronic, almost a fence if you like, will be dropped around individual parts of these cities or regions to segregate communities, and that within these newly created communities, all of the day-to-day necessities, essentials of life that you and I require to go about our daily business will be available within a 15-minute walk or cycle ride. I struggle to get my head around, not the concept, I fully understand the concept, but the reality that is being suggested. I know from first-hand experience that within 15 minutes of my house, I cannot literally go to do my job of work. My job of work requires me travelling more than a 15-minute walk or cycle ride away. In terms of 15-minute walk, and I live in a fairly, I was going to say small, but let's call it a medium-sized town. It's not a city. A 15-minute walk for me, I can make the supermarket. I can make one supermarket within 15 minutes of walking or cycling, but that's all. So there's my choice gone in terms of where I shop. The doctor's surgery, that's not 15 minutes, that's more than 15 minutes walk. I could probably get there on a bicycle in 15 minutes, but as I'm actually 60 years old now, I'm in fairly good shape, I think, health-wise. I wouldn't claim to be fit per se, but I know an awful lot of people of my age, and certainly even more than them, older age than me, that would struggle to walk 15 minutes or cycle 15 minutes. And by the time they get to the doctor's surgery, they'll probably have another condition other than the one that they originally went there for. A little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm sure you get what I'm saying. Leisure centre, absolutely not, more than 15 minutes. Probably more than 15 minutes by bicycle as well, actually, by the time you wend your way around the road network. Cinema, more than 15 minutes. Pub, I can do a pub in less than 15 minutes, and a pub that serves food in less than 15 minutes, but the majority of the high street coffee shops and other kinds of restaurants, and for that matter, the next nearest pub is more than 15 minutes walk for sure. Could probably do it in 15 minutes on a bicycle if I broke into a sweat. Though the high street, probably not. So this 15-minute concept is just bizarre anyway. You would have to do massive infrastructural change and throw in a whole host of new facilities for the majority of people to be able to do everything that they need to do within that 15-minute boundary. And this isn't a suggestion. They're actually already implementing changes to the road network infrastructure. They're closing off streets, putting in big planters and bollards to physically stop the cars going. And they will allow you to stray beyond the 15-minute boundary by car, but on condition that you pay a fee and you do it no more than 100 times a year. So twice a week, you're allowed to drive in your car outside of this 15-minute radius. So it's a bizarre concept. It's fraught with a whole host of lack of choice, lack of flexibility, and in many cases, just a distinct lack of availability of services for the majority of people. And there's a financial implication as well. I mean, they're trying to promote this on the guise of saving the planet, as they always do, and making the area where you live far more green and pleasant land than it is currently. Why aren't they doing that anyway, given the amount of tax that they take off us? And I guess they're going to use that money for other projects yet to come. So yeah, 15-minute cities. Have a little look on Google or the internet in general, and you'll find a whole host of discussion about that. And this is a global concept, so it's not just here in the UK. I've not done too much digging around to find out what other countries have adopted this. Australia is one of them. But it's coming to a city or region near you because it's a global initiative. Another bit of a bizarre thing in the news, though I guess this is off the back of the Saving the Planet and this general restriction of rules that seem to be never ending now by government. Article this last week here in the UK, but again this is a global thing. You might remember during the start of the energy crisis, everyone was saying get a wood burning stove, and that's a way of heating your house and perhaps doing some small scale cooking if the lights went out. Good advice as a backup, absolutely. But here in the UK, historically, pretty much every house had some kind of solid fuel fire for heat and hot water production. And that was gradually phased out when we started to get natural gas becoming more prevalent, I guess back in the 70s. I remember growing up with a coal fire, then that turned into a coke fire because it was actually better burning and produced more heat than coal did. And then probably around the late 70s, early 80s, I moved into my first house that had gas as a fuel for producing hot water and heating around the house. So wood and solid fuel kind of died a bit of a natural death back in the 70s, and it was really only really older houses that people kept it for sentimental reasons rather than efficiency reasons, or kind of the more extreme rural properties where there just wasn't a gas pipeline running to the house. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. There's something like 1.5 million wood burning or solid fuel heating systems in the UK, according to statistics. But never want to miss a trick. Government has gradually over the years, on the back of climate change and saving the planet, put more and more restrictions on the emissions. That's the route in to get rid of them, the emissions that wood burning stoves are allowed to produce. This last week they've had a revisit of that. They're now been more draconian in enforcing these rules that have been there for a while, but government wasn't really paying that much attention to them. You weren't having foot patrols like you do with dog fouling the pavement or litter. You haven't got these little wardens running around your towns and cities fining people for dropping a cigarette butt or for not picking up the dog waste. But looking at this article, it seems that is coming to a town and city near you, and just for extra measure they've reduced the level of emissions that are now permissible. And again, pretty much all of the UK is covered by these emissions rules. It's just that they weren't really been enforced so vigorously as they will be moving forward. Really bizarre news this week. I don't know if you've seen the news articles, because since the war in Ukraine there's been lots of articles floating around about Russian planes invading airspace and Russian warships sailing through international waters, but they don't say that. They say off the coast of England or off the coast of Holland or off the coast of America. So yeah, you might have seen news articles about Russian planes or Chinese planes allegedly straying into national airspace, when in fact it's not national airspace strictly by the book. It's air defence monitored airspace, which stretches out far, far further than the actual legal sovereign boundaries. But I digress, as I often do. Anyway, back in the heady days of the Cold War, go and check out last week's Friday video. Tanks for nothing. Air defence was a huge thing because every country in the NATO alliance and others were busy watching out for the bombers coming over and getting an early warning so they could go out and launch their fighters to meet them and attack them. And the natural border geographically between North American continent and the Russian boundary of the Asian continent, actually it's not very far. And that area, the Alaska area, massive amounts of air defence monitoring, radars, plane patrols, so on and so forth. You would think that given the heightened tension with Russia, they'd all be on kind of red alert and keeping an eye out and monitoring the skies, and it seems there's a flaw in the plan. Because a Chinese balloon has strayed into American airspace, and actually this time it is really American airspace, not this further afield air defence monitoring zone. So yeah, big news this week and lots of conspiracy theory about this mysterious Chinese balloon. The Chinese say it's a weather balloon and that it's been knocked off course by the winds up in the higher atmosphere. The Americans, well, pick your conspiracy. It's full of radioactive material, it's full of lab-grown viruses, it's a surveillance spy satellite. Pick whichever of those tickles your fancy. And Americans are jumping up and down saying, how can this be? And we must do something immediately and shoot it down. And I guess from my perspective anyway, the interesting question is, how did it get all the way from Alaska, where it first strayed in, no mention of it, all the way down through Canada to the north boundary of the US, and then float across the northern states of America? And everybody's seen this. It's all over YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and all these other channels. And the Americans have kind of done nothing about it. I know they have their own weather balloons, and I know that they have the technology with aircraft to capture these. So you would have thought that it's not beyond the realms that they'd have spotted it off the coast of Alaska, sent up one of these balloon catching planes, or any other method, if you like, if they wanted to capture it and see what was in it, or they'd have just shot it down before it actually made landfall up in Alaska. And they didn't. That's a bit odd. And literally yesterday it comes to light that there's another one of these floating around South America as well. So yeah, bit of weird news. With my conspiracy hat on, it is over there, but I can't be bothered to get it. Not for a 2-second segment anyway. Maybe, just maybe, they want to use this to their benefit and hype up the anti-China rhetoric a little bit more, just in case they want to excuse to deploy more troops and weaponry down to the Taiwan area. Who knows? But yeah, Chinese balloons. There is a song actually from the Cold War period as well. I think the name was Lena. 99 Red Balloons. Check it out, really nice tune. 99 Red Balloons. Digress again. I can't get away with not touching briefly on the current war in Ukraine. Endless, it seems, supply of weaponry now going in, and on top of tanks, countries, and I think the US did literally yesterday or the day before announce that they are thinking about sending planes, fighter planes, to Ukraine. But the reason I mention this isn't because of the potential for escalation. It's kind of inevitable that at some point over the next week or two, I think Russia has actually had enough now, and I think we are going to see this minor conflict, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way to the Ukrainians, but this minor conflict actually going into a full-blown all-out war rather than conflict in Ukraine. But the interesting thing is the amount of pushback now from the public. Despite the best efforts of the media to keep everyone on side, I think it's the sheer volume of money that has been thrown at Ukraine by lots of different countries. I mean, UK contributions, we're in the, I don't know how many billions it is now, but it's billions with a B, and it's a fair amount. Declared numbers, last time I looked, was about 3.5, 4 billion. Undoubtedly that's increased, but that's the declared amount that's been spent. I suspect it's a lot more than that. It usually is. But it seems a lot of people are getting rather disappointed, is a polite way of saying, at the amount of money that's been thrown at Ukraine when people in this country are suffering genuine hardship with all of these cost of living crisis, energy crisis. They're just getting a bit fed up now. There was a poll in Germany that said 80% of Germans would want their government to settle this conflict diplomatic means rather than just chucking money and weaponry at it. There are demonstrations in various places now. Public is getting a bit peeved at the amount of money that's been spent on this, and probably with the potential that this could go global, and they might not have a country left after that. So public disquiet is beginning to appear more often now and creep its way into, certainly it's in the social media sphere, but slowly into the main media sphere. One final point, which is connected with public angst. Illegal immigration into the UK. Not gone away, continuing at pace. I think I mentioned it in a video back end of last year when the figures came out in December. This is illegal migration across the Channel in boats. It's not all of the other illegal migration that goes on, and it's not the legal migration. We have 500,000 legal migrants came to the UK last year. We had 45,000 illegal migrants just crossing the Channel in small boats. And we're in 2023 now, and it seems that this continues at pace. Last weekend on Sunday, just on Sunday, 450 came across in small boats across the Channel. The government is spending hundreds of millions of pounds a year now on putting these migrants, just these illegal migrants from the Channel, God knows how many more there are, putting them up in hotels all across the country. They've been shipped out to different parts of the country to try and, I was going to say integrate, but it's not that, it's hide, to kind of spread them out thinly and hide them in hotels. So it's full board and lodgings. You know, you've got, unlike the people, the legal people in the UK, they're not paying their gas, their electric, their water, their council tax, their rent. They're not paying any of that. It's all free. Their food also, they're given pocket money, £45 per week per person, to go out and spend. And there's this endless do-good charity system set up that, you know, finds new clothes for them, phones for them, SIM cards for them. It's a racket. And yeah, public are actually getting a bit miffed with this. seen quite a few videos on YouTube from different parts of the country, kind of town hall meetings, people out on the street actually protesting about this. So there is a lot of angst in the UK around this topic. And again, this is a bit of a global phenomenon. All of Western Europe for sure has similar problems. And I know that our American cousins have a similar issue on their southern border. I think all of this that we've got going on right now could quite well lead into more in-your-face, direct public action in terms of protests over the course of this year, probably the summer, because people don't like going out on the streets protesting in the depths and cold of winter. But I suspect by summertime, when it's nice and warm and we've got more daylight hours, something to watch out for. I think we might see all of this come to a head, and we might see some fairly significant civil protest, civil disorder down the track as we go through 2023. So that was it. That was my kind of run round of what's going on in the big wide world. Quite a lot of stuff there. I didn't really mean to go into so much depth, but there is just such a lot of it, and some of the stuff you might not be too familiar with, so I thought it was worth touching on. Anyway, enough of me. How are things with you? Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, hope you're staying safe and well and enjoying your weekend and coping with all these myriad of crises we've got going on right now. In terms of where I'm going to get up to over the weekend, I've brought my supplies down from the car. I've brought some packs of roofing sheets for the cabin roof. I could do with a little bit better weather than we've got now before I start tackling that, because the whole roof has got to come off. And I've got to make sure that when I do that, I'm not going to get any rain. And that's hard to judge right now. So fingers crossed, touch wood and all that. I'm hoping that it holds up. I was a bit nervous the other day. We did get some more strong winds Thursday and Friday, and I was a little bit concerned, but yeah, it's holding up still. Even my little patch job, totally dry again in this corner now. So I've got packs of roofing sheets ready to go now. There's a big box of special fixings. They're kind of self-drilling hexagonal nut type screws. I've not used those before, and they're not cheap, but I figure if you're going to do it properly. I know when I did the second set of IBC water containers, I put a metal sheet roof on that. So if you scroll back in the videos, you'll see exactly the kind of roofing sheets I'm talking about. And when I installed that, I found I had to pre-punch a hole in the metal sheet to be able to drill the screws in to the wooden frame underneath. And I wanted to avoid that extra work and hassle with this, because this is working at height and a lot of bending, stretching involved. So I wanted to make the fixing part as easy as I could, and as quick as I could. So that was one lot of things I brought over from the car. Another lot, I brought more bags of compost. I've still got lots of stuff to do in the polytunnel and indeed here in the garden room in terms of prep for planting. I am kind of tempted this weekend to also start some seeds off in those little plastic lid trays, seed trays in the polytunnel. We are forecast for milder temperatures this coming week, but in the news media they're still saying that we've got this cold snap coming and they can't quite predict when. But if you read some of the articles in the news, I mean, it's talking about huge amounts of snow and pretty significant sub-zero temperatures, so I'm a little bit nervous. I know I've got my paraffin heater, but do I want to set myself up for a fall? So prep work for sure, planting not so sure, but wherever I am doing, I'll keep you posted as we go through the video. So let it get cracked on. I'm tempted to have another cup of coffee. It is cooling down again. I'm debating, do I want to light the fire or do I just flick the diesel heater back on? I guess we'll see. Well, I figured I'd bite the bullet and get some onion sets in. I've popped out 4 rows in here and I'll just wend my way up the bed, get them popped in. I'm going to do the other bed as well, but I might leave that a few weeks. I don't know yet. We'll see, I guess, how I get on. Might be a little bit early. Bloody leaves. But I figured I'll give it a shot. If this bed doesn't play out as expected, hopefully the other one will. Actually got a shoot on that one. It's nice to see. Oh, you never know what the weather's going to do. Will this all be in vain? Have I done it too early? Burning question. Time will tell. I did say I'd show you this other bed, so let's take a little look. You can see where the rabbits have been chewing. That's going to need recovering this year, but look at all these. And everywhere you look, garlic coming through. How nice is that? I trust you can see this through the mesh. Very nice. Hopefully that'll come through in the next few weeks. We'll see about that one. Give it a little bit of time yet and turn my attention to the polytunnel. See what I can get done in there. Oh, I've got some seed trays ready, so I'll just give them a little bit of a watering. We'll see if we can't get some seeds started off. So we've got the first seeds going in. I've decided to have a go with peas again this year. I didn't have much success last year, in all honesty. They just didn't seem to want to have a go at all. So we'll try again this year, see how we get on. You never know. Going for a bit of overkill on this one. These are the ones that are generally hardest, or I've found to be hardest to germinate. So we're going for a bit of overkill. I'm not going to need this many, but I can always give the excess to other people, if there is an excess, of course. We'll see. Rather than bore you to death filling all these up, I'll stop the video and we'll move on again when we get to the next tree. Right, just to remind me what's in there, that's the peas. Let's crack on with the tomatoes. Bit fiddly this one, seeds are a lot smaller. But let's give it a go. Oh, they're so fiddly. Getting two in some of them, but it is what it is. Right, got a couple left, so let's spread those out a little bit. There we go. Right, same again, press those down. I will give them a final dusting with compost once I've given them another spray. It's surprising how the compost sinks, even though you try and press it in before you start. Right, that's tomatoes. Next on the agenda, cucumber. Had a really good year last year with cucumber, so fingers crossed for the same again this year. These are a little bit bigger, so that's good. I should be able to get one in each rather than spreading them out too thickly. Again, I probably won't need all of these, but we'll give them a go. I have actually got seed that I saved from last year, so I'm going to fill half this tray with packet bought seeds, which are these, and then I'll just fill in the remaining gaps with seed that I collected last year. So I'll finish this off and come back to you shortly. Right, that's the cucumbers planted. Just give them another quick water. That's the seeds that I saved from the cucumbers that I actually grew last year. I'll know which ones are which because I've planted these towards the middle of the tray. So, just that over with a bit of compost just to fill in any gaps, and we'll move on to the next bit. Well, I figured I'd take a bit of a gamble and do a couple of pots. So I'm just going to sprinkle a few carrots into these two buckets. I'll make a point of thinning these out. Over previous years I had a lot of success with carrots, but last year was shocking. Combination of slug damage and the weather was just shocking. We had that huge long summer that just went on forever with record breaking 40-degree temperatures at one point, which was a bit ridiculous. So we'll see how we get on this year. Just thought I'd start a couple off early. It is really early and I might be making a big mistake, but it's all an experiment. If you don't try, you don't know what works and what doesn't. So I am only just going to do those two. I'll wait and see what happens with seedlings. But I also thought, where I eventually will plant out either the peas or the cucumbers with these canes, I've got these middle buckets. I just put as a filler really. So what I'm going to do with those is see if I can start off some lettuce. I'll pop some in these. I've got two of these, one each side of the polytunnel. I'll pop some in the buckets, and I might be tempted to grow a tray of them as well to plant out. Not that I eat a lot of lettuce, but I know someone that does. The old chickens. So I'll sprinkle a few in these pots. I'll cover the whole lot over with compost, give them a bit of water, and we won't be far off having to get off and do other stuff that vies for our attention outside of the cabin and the field. Well, that's the polytunnel, looking a bit more organised. I've popped lettuce in that pot in the middle, that pot in the middle. That's the two carrots that I planted out. I've got the peas, the tomato, cucumber, and I couldn't resist doing a tray of lettuce as well. So I've got a spare tray just sat on there waiting for something to do, but not today. Do you know, I wondered where those scissors had gone. Let's shut this up. Outside, garlic coming through in that bed, a lot of garlic. Onions I've just put in. That one's spare for now, and as are these two. We've got strawberries overwintering, more strawberries overwintering. Yet to decide what to do with this barrel. So it's all starting slowly to come along. The burning question is, what's the weather going to do? That's a trick question. We don't know. Anyway, I've got to get myself in the cabin, put my seeds away, have a bit of a tidy up, and it'll soon be time to get off. Well, that's it for today. It is a grey sky. Not sure if we're going to get rain or not. As long as we don't freeze, I'm happy. It's nice to see the beds looking clean and tidy. It's also really encouraging that I've actually got some seeds in trays and pots. And we're at the start of February only. Quite whether they'll make it or they won't, I guess we'll see in time. You'll certainly know about it because I'll be giving you the regular updates. Another month maybe, and we can start taking a peek inside the beehives, see what's happening in there. And I can bring that third hive out so that we're ready in case we get a swarm in April or May. What I do really want is to see some greenery on these trees and hedges. It looks rubbish, it really does, with no greenery. You get the car noise, you see the cars passing by. I just want to get myself all enclosed again. Same with that wooded area. There's a bridleway on the top of that hill there, and I get people walking past all the time. So it'd be nice to get a bit of cover again from the noise and traffic on the bridleway. Anyway, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please do stay safe and well. Enjoy your weekend. Let me know what's happening with you, what you're up to in the comment section. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Well, that's it for this video. I hope there was something in there that was of interest to you. If you did like the video, please do click on the like button. Also feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always, I welcome any comments, questions or suggestions you might have. Just feel free to leave them in the comments section below. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.